Welcome, everyone. Today we get to talk about uncertainty. Have you had a little bit of that recently? I think we all have, right? So, how do we get to embrace that uncertainty? How do we actually get to recognize the unexpected benefits that can come from kindness? So, I am so excited to have this show today because I love the energy that it gets to bring to everyone right now in this time and space that we're in. My name is Cheryl Bassett. I'm founder of Unstoppable Connections, international bestseller, and creator of the award-winning Unstoppable Family Meeting Toolkit. I'm also the host of this show, Kitchen Table Conversations, as part of the Edge Network and the Global One Network. So families do get to tap into something I got to do with my family, which is create these 4 gifts. And these 4 gifts create an unshakable, unbreakable foundation that's built on trust. You can learn more about the 4 gifts and the work that I do for connecting families at unstoppableconnections.com. And if you have an idea for this show or you'd like to be on the show, you can reach out to me at kitchentableconversations.com. Now, what I like to do for every show, I just feel like it's so important as we set this intention to sort of just wrap around and celebrate the person that's here with us today. The show is really designed to cover the fun stuff, the tough stuff, and everything in between, but all of it is to ignite conversations for your family, to strengthen your family, and to create a positive ripple out into the world. Today, we're going to really start to strengthen that ripple out into the world. I love the energy of what we're bringing to today's show. So, but with that, what we want to do is unwrap one of the gifts I do share, which is the 4th gift, the gift of love. And we do that by choosing to celebrate ourselves and others. It's with that heart and that intent that we come here in a true celebration of our guest for today. And what I want to do right now is actually read just a little bit of her bio and then bring her on because you're going to love her as we kind of dig into this today. Erin Lawler Patterson is, I love this, the goodness chick. She is an international speaker, podcaster, author, and life coach. For the past 20 years, she has worked in the mental health field, empowering others to live life with a full cup rather than an empty one. Her focus is on mental health, wellness, self-care, the power of kindness, and positive human connection. Erin lives in Vero Beach, Florida, and you're going to see that as soon as you see her face versus my face. When she isn't spreading goodness, Erin is usually out surfing, road tripping, or free diving with her 5-year-old son. I don't even know what free diving is, but it sounds great. So anyway, let's bring on Erin so you can meet her.
Hey, Cheryl.
Yes, there she is with the tan. And
I do. I'm guilty as charged. Yes, for sure.
I'm envious. So anyway, it's great to have you here.
I'm honored to be here today.
Great. Yeah. So we just connected recently.
Yes. Yes, we did. But it was an awesome, quick, like just full of depth connection. I do think certain things are intended to be, and I think our connection definitely falls under that.
Yeah, it does. And I just love. So how did you get to become the goodness chick?
So that has been quite a journey over the years. I started out a number of years ago where I just kind of start from the beginning here, very abridged version, but I was a junior in college and I was actually intending on being a English teacher. And it was my junior year of college that my sister Shayna and her 3 friends lost their life to a drunk driver. And it was during the trial that this happened that I really made a pivotal decision in my life, realizing that the woman who did this wasn't evil, but made a really bad, selfish decision, but also fell through the cracks. She had signs of addictions early into high school, and nobody ever spoke up. And at that point, I knew I still wanted to work with kids, with teenagers, but not to the capacity of within the classroom. So I didn't know what that meant. And what ended up happening is I was looking online and I was like, you know what, I want to deal solely with addiction. And it was like solely with addiction when it comes to mental health, so narrow. But there was a program actually offered at East Carolina University, was at the time one of the only masters in clinical addictions counseling at the time. And that's what I went for. And then I ended up graduating and I went overseas for a bit where I worked with kids in New Zealand. Was then offered a job in New Jersey, flipping around the map here, to be what's called a student assistance coordinator, essentially a crisis and addictions counselor, where I was there for 14 years. And during that time, really the last few years, I was getting really inundated with texts and emails, questions that parents and even graduates were asking me about mental health, about life. And I'm like, instead of still answering every one of these, but really allowing this information to get out there, I opened up my website, The Goodness Chick, it kind of fit because a lot of what I do was not only the mental health aspect, but connected to the aspect that we leave out a lot, kindness and giving back, where I did a lot of community outreach with kids. I believe that is and was and will forever be a critical facet of us being well, of us being balanced, that a lot of times we don't talk about. So fast forward a number of years, I left my position. I resigned. It's a great job, but it was time to move on. My husband left his job as an assistant principal. We bought a one-way ticket to go around the world with our 3-year-old son in what I will say in pursuit of kindness. That was our next step. We spent 10 months going around the world, 23 countries, that's still talking and doing things as the goodness chick. And then we landed here in Vero Beach, Florida. So a very abbreviated, abridged version of how the goodness chick kind of came to be.
But there's so much in that, right? Like, first of all, like, I want to back up because your story is so powerful. Because really what it starts in is in the energy of forgiveness.
That took a long time. Actually, today would have been my sister's 39th birthday, November 11th. And so, I wrote something a little bit yesterday on Facebook, on social media, both personally and professionally, and it's hard to share even, it's been a long time. But what I say to people, like, when you hear, time heals all wounds, I feel like you lost your hamster or you lost some socks. Like, that's not the equivalent of somebody that just is like air that you breathe. And that's my sister. And it's not is my sister's a part of me. But the forgiveness took a long time, man. The woman who did this is still in prison, will more than likely be there for the rest of her life. Do I think she's evil? No, but she took my best friend and 3 of her best friends, and the domino effect. And I think a lot of times in our society, we hear it's my decisions. Well, but your life also has implications and a ripple effect on other people's lives.
Right.
And
absolutely.
And owning that, and the aspect of forgiveness.
But then you turn around and you do something like really powerful with it, right? Because I'm sure part of you, but like, if you want something good to come out of, if you have to turn it into something that's more of a positive. So this is why you got into this kindness and giving back and really shifting that, but then also obviously working with maybe making a difference in someone else's life so that they don't make that same decision.
Right. Absolutely. One of my focuses the first day I started in that high school, and I worked in a rehab before that, was every day going in and I would pray, for wisdom and direction. But just, I don't want anybody, because where this crash happened, it wasn't an accident. There's 4 crosses on the intersection. And I said, I don't want anyone else to have to go through seeing their best friend, their kid, their sibling, whoever it is, like their name on a cross. That's not fair. And so if it could be avoidable, there's certain things in life, obviously, that accidents do happen, but this wasn't an accident. And so if I could go forward and knowing, when we work in this field, right, you're going to say things and do things that sometimes you're not even going to know the magnitude of the difference it makes. And I think that's a pretty beautiful thing.
Well, it reminds me of, and it's probably a simplistic analogy or example, but, they talk about the thing you've heard where they're on the beach throwing the starfish back in, and there's like thousands and thousands of them, and the little boy picks it up and throws it, and somebody goes, why are you doing that? You can't possibly save all these starfish. And he said, yeah, but it made a difference to that one, right? And I feel like you don't know the impact you're having just by stepping in and making a difference. How many did you save someone else's life down the road because you helped that?
Right. And it's little kernels of goodness, is what I call them, that have the ability to change someone's life. And it's not about us, what are we going to get? But what I've just said is just like unbridled kindness that has the ability to revolutionize our lives. It really does, and someone else's. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So you have a podcast and you talk about this and you do. So tell me a little bit more about that. Or maybe we need to bridge into, because I know you really wanted to talk about just like the domino effect, which we're talking about right now, of the kindness and how it could impact lifestyle. But you also had on here, life is unpredictable, but our mindset doesn't have to be.
Right. And I absolutely believe in that. And, it's funny, like, things happen in life, and there's things that you cannot avoid, that you can't change. You're not God. And that can be really hard for us to digest sometimes. And I know, before I resigned from my position, I was kind of at an unsettled place. People around me were like, you're leaving your job is secure. Like, what are you doing? I was just not at peace. And so what we ended up doing is I talked a little bit about going overseas, and this was where this pairs into kindness, is that I interviewed and talked with tons of people who had faced ongoing bouts of change, of uncertainty, of just, we'll say, the crazy train of life, grief. And with that, what they clung to was the aspect of kindness, the beauty of giving back. And when those two things are part of, not all of, but part of our core, it had, like, they were game changers, baby. People that were just in a good place emotionally, but the ripple effect of where they were and what they were doing, things you'll never hear about, right? When you're online or on Twitter or whatever the heck it is, because they're in like these little pockets of the world, and they're not doing it for them. They're doing it just because that's a part of their lifestyle. And so there are things in life we cannot predict, but I believe when we adhere to a lifestyle of kindness and connecting it with giving back, where it's like, I don't have time, right? A lot of times, because you were referencing a little bit before about having to do these like grandiose things, like that's what we think sometimes. I have to do, it starts little. And then that ripple effect is on our kids or our nieces and nephews or our neighbors, where it's like, do you have like right now you're up north, you have a ton of socks that you're like, I'm never going to use, right? I've got these, well, put them in a bag. And I can tell you somebody without a home right now would be extremely grateful. And it took you 3.7 minutes. So a lot of times we have these lofty, like we compare ourselves to like Oprah, right? Or we have to do this. Like, no, meet yourself with where you're at with your circumstances. We're still going through, a pandemic. Things are kind of feeling overwhelming. There's been so much uncertainty. I am certain things will continue to be uncertain. So where can you keep sane with that? And I believe we become better people, and the craziness around us feels less crazy when we don't just focus on ourselves and the craziness. When we look for those kernels of goodness, it makes the kind of like, it's like, you have a Tupperware container with rocks and some sand and you're just shaking it. That's like our current situation. It's like, things are crazy. Well, instead of focusing on the crazy, right? I'm like, it's saying, okay, what am I going to do? One of my favorite songs is by Jack Johnson and Ben Harper, and it says, I can change the world with my own two hands. And truly, truly, that can happen within our communities. Every one of these people I interviewed when we were overseas, actually, I did interviews, I'm not kidding, if I had videos of like in jungles, in like deserts, you name it, on ferries. It was crazy train awesome, but all of these people had the same commonality, this yearning and passion and pursuit of kindness and giving back.
And I feel like right now, man, if we can get to that focus, right? Because I feel like we feel like everybody's got a label right now, right? And it's like, okay, depending on what your label is, I'm going to already determine whether or not I'm going to like you, not like you, trust you, not trust you, whatever. And if we just remember that at the end of the day, we all really want to live in a world of kindness. Yes. I mean, 98% of us want to live in a world of kindness, right? And keeping that perspective, I think, front and center is just like insanely important right now. And then obviously the ripple effect of what it is we get to create. And you're right. I think a lot of us think, we got to do this big, grandiose thing. And the truth is that we just need to show up.
And then we don't do anything because it's like, I can't do that. Yeah. And it's like, you're missing out. You're missing out. I'll tell you this, one of the projects I did as a counselor was, which people thought was insane at first, was getting kids. We would make about 100, 125 bag lunches. We'd hop on a bus and go into Philly. And the kids were given the task of over a month to collect certain clothing, depending on the season. And we'd set up shop in the middle of Love Park. And I would love to see the transformation of these kids. And even teachers had to come with me to say, all right, we're going to go help people, to actually doing it and watching a human being and looking in their eyes, because we're all human, right? But we put these labels, just like you referenced, like, they're this, or they're going to be, they're living under the bridge and they have no teeth and they smell. Well, when somebody comes, like, we have all these false, well, what's their story if they do? And I would say, why don't you sit down and talk to that person, that man or that woman, and the stories would just come out. And I would have kids in tears. I didn't know that one bag lunch I brought in, or those old pair of shoes in the back of my closet, could make somebody's day. Yeah. We don't know. And the ability to not judge people, everyone's got a story, but with our two hands, we can make a crazy difference in the world.
Yeah, I love that. So let's dig into this. So like, let's say a family's sitting down at the kitchen table and they're wanting to come up with, it's not, because I feel like you've got other ideas. So you got the, like, okay, just go get your socks, like put your socks together and take them somewhere. What other kind of ideas do you think like families could wrap around? Like what other things have you, I mean, obviously right now, obviously going out and doing that in the park with the lunches might not be something that's possible, but maybe
well, you could gather food. Yeah, things is right. You're not like, hey, I'm schlepping these blankets down to whatever. But I mean, you almost could, you get creative depending on where you live. 100% there's need wherever you're living right now. So it could be, depending on the age of your kids, there are a lot of soup kitchens that are still open, right? But they're doing prepackaged meals. I can help with that. It could be, we're involved in Habitat for Humanity. Again, depending on the age of your kids, Habitat for Humanity is unbelievable. That is game changer, awesome. Building houses for people, that is great. I'd also say this, like if you have an older teenager or middle schooler that like knows how to play an instrument, it's volunteering to maybe, give some lessons to somebody. Like we could just get creative, or like going through our house and things that like, we really don't need. We're purging ourselves of toys and bringing it to an organization, a nonprofit that's collecting things right now. And getting, on the phone and talk and bringing your kids with you to do these drop-offs. And so they're visualizing, right, this is where this is going. I know in Vero Beach, you have multi-million-dollar homes and you have people sleeping on park benches. So what I've done, and actually this doesn't really happen a lot in the summertime, I have to individually bring these, but I keep crackers, I keep water, and I keep, usually a piece of fruit in my car in a bag. And when I see somebody at a stop sign, I hand it to that person, have a great day. And I look them in the eye. Well, I'll tell you what, okay, I'm working on my kid who's 5 years old, being a little bit more giving. We're still working on that. But he used to go from bugging out, right? Don't give him my orange, right? That makes me proud. So now, like, hey, mommy, that person I think doesn't have a home. And like, can we give them a water bottle, right? I mean, and sometimes that fluctuates on his days and he's not digging it. But the reality is, when our kids, we could talk about being good and being kind, but when we put it into action ourselves, that makes a difference with our kids. And they see it. It's not just action. Love is a verb, baby. It's loving and kindness in action, not just saying. So there really are so many things within your neighborhood, right? You could like get some, you get on Messenger with your neighbors, like, guys, we're going to put some stuff together for families for Thanksgiving, for Hanukkah, for Christmas. And, there's so many, you get on Facebook within your community, there's so many organizations right now, we're going to go shopping together, or even online if you don't want to go out, right? And you're going to make somebody a Christmas. All these things that don't have to require lots and lots of money, or, right, adopting somebody who's overseas right now that's fighting for our country, and mail them a letter and snacks. I went off on a rampage, but this is a big one.
I love it, and I think it's great. And I'll go back and kick myself in the butt. But one year we did that. We found a family where, the mom and the dad were not there, not present, and we bought gifts and we took them out to a movie, and we had and my kids were young, and it was just like this really cool experience. And I think sometimes, and this is where I just would really encourage people, and I'm sure too, but just like tapping into someplace, because the next year it's like, I think we would have done it again, but we weren't really sure how to find another family. You know what I mean? So, and probably we could have called any church or
churches, different nonprofits within your community. Absolutely have a list of, there's people, and this is where I know we talked a little bit about this. I call, and I've talked to my son about like being like a kindness ninja, doing things that people don't even know that you're doing, right? Like you have the neighbor up the road. They just lost somebody, or they lost their business during COVID. Go be a kindness ninja. Go drop something really cool at their door and just say, from your neighbor. You don't need to say who it is. Or it's passing a gift card, for, at your local coffee shop. Support small businesses. To calling your church, your synagogue, different nonprofits, and hey, is there somebody that I could adopt for the holidays? The next 7 weeks is the mothership of people being able to really let's get creative now. And then when you get in the groove, it's making it year round. It's making it year round. Like, people get upset, they won't take me at the soup kitchen to help. Well, that's the most volunteered day of the year. What about 3 weeks from them? What about 3 weeks into the new year, where it's people are hungry, not just on Thanksgiving, right? Boom, there's 364 other days of the year, and making it a part of your lifestyle. And when we do, when I tell you, it will change and have an impact on strengthening your kids' character and how they look at life. 100%. It's something we do not tap into enough.
And, you know, and it's funny because when we do those things, because we've volunteered like at the pancake breakfast or the soup kitchens or whatever, you feel so good. Like, I mean, it's not just one-sided. Yes, you are helping that person, but if you think it's not helping you, oh my God, like the amount of just like feel good that you get from
it's a high. It is a high.
Yeah.
And that's what I would tell people, like when I do my speaking things, like one of my things, actually in my second book, this was one of my first chapters, was called Get High. And that went over really well, you know, as a drug counselor, where it's like, get high. But I broke it down to say, like, when we hear that, we're like, I'm thinking a bong, or I'm thinking pills or some, you know, cocaine. And I'm like, that's our false teaching. It's like, what is it that if you don't have a high in life, and it can absolutely be giving back and volunteering, that high is going to find you. And when we build those bricks for our kids and ourselves of giving back and volunteering and outreach, that it's a part of us, you will get high from it. Your endorphins will kick in. It has an impact on your self-esteem. It's a game changer, baby.
Yeah. I love it. You know, it reminds me too. We have this thing when we used to do our family meeting, we'd have random act of kindness, and we would have that as part of our family agenda. And it wasn't that every week we had a random act of kindness, but it was front and center. We always at least brought it up, and then you start to see them. It starts to become part of your awareness. And I feel like the more you would get in this energy of giving, because I'll never forget David running in the door from school one day, you know, he's probably 13, you know, whatever. And he says, Mom, if we leave right now, we can go do a random act of kindness. And it just starts to create, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, I don't even know what we're doing, but I'm in, you know. It was giving a ride to one of his teammates who he overheard on the phone with his mom. He was going to have to walk home in the 90-degree heat with all of his football equipment. We found him because David knew where he lived, and we gave him a ride like the last half mile of his journey. And David felt like he was so excited, right, that he got to be a part of that. And I feel like it's exactly what you're talking about, like looking for those and ingraining that into, especially when your kids are young. Giving them those opportunities to really participate in this. So I think it's just,
and it's as simple as you're, you know, you're getting gas, right? And you have somebody in uniform in front of you or behind you, and it's buying their coffee, you know, or the person, you know, buying, you know, their donut, but whatever it is, like, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And you can do undercover ninja, you know, that nobody knows you did it, or you could say, hey, thank you for serving, you know, you have somebody in uniform, or just, it makes people's day, and it doesn't have to be over the top.
No, it doesn't.
Kids see that, like, it just, you know, it makes a difference. It's just, it's awesome.
It is. And the whole energy of it. I mean, and I know this to be true. So last summer, we had somebody we were out with, and they got in line at a drive-through, and they were 4 cars in front of us. And they did a pay it forward. So they paid for the person behind, right? And then that person paid for the person behind them. And then, and by the time we got up there, I said to her, I said, well, we're going to pay. She goes, oh my God, I am so confused right now. I don't know who's paying for who. She goes, I guess this is beautiful. She said, but right now, she said, so you want to pay? And she said, I think, so she was so confused, but she said, like, I feel like this is a beautiful moment. She goes, but I have no idea what I'm doing right now. That's how contagious it was.
Right. And then it impacted her. She's like, you know, had maybe a rough day in the beginning, and people could be kind of
laughing.
And it was like, wow, like it kind of reinstills hope in humanity again. And I think, just like you referenced before, we have a lot of people feeling tired and disheartened and just tired because this is just, there's a lot going on. And this is one way that I do think, you know, you can have a game plan for sure. We talk about it. It can really change the mindset of not just parents, but their kids. And it takes time, it takes patience, but I think it's just this, it's a glimmer of goodness, if you will.
It is. It is. And I love it. And I feel like what I would really love to do is we'll get this up in the Family Connection Challenge group, because I feel like this would be such a great, like, let families come in and start sharing, like, how did you, like, today you could literally go out and just start a ripple of something, right? Positive. And it doesn't have to be big. In fact, sometimes the most simple things become the most impactful, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would love to see that happen in the group where we just kind of get in there and start sharing. I wanted to put up one of our Facebook, and it's interesting that I can't see who wrote this, but because they're a Facebook user. I don't know who said it. Erin, you are a great spirit. Glad meeting you. Life brings its own together. Wow.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. Yes, it does.
That's the ripple, right? Right there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that's great. Whoever posted that, my guess is they're posting from one like YouTube or something where I can't actually see. It's coming in through Facebook, but I can't actually see it. So I'll find out later. But anyway, thank you, whoever shared that. That's beautiful. And I feel like that's the energy we're obviously trying to create in the moment. So, what else? The significance you had here of positive and negative human connection through challenging seasons of life. And I feel like we probably covered that a little bit. Is there more, though, in that space that you wanted to share today?
Well, I think who we choose to surround and layer ourselves with is really important in all stages of our lives. And I think as I've gotten older, I've realized it's okay to, I don't want to use the word weed people out, but if there's toxic people in your life, you can give them the benefit of the doubt and have conversations. But who we are conversing with, who we're, connecting with by choice. I know sometimes family gets a little complicated and even in the workplace, but by choice is really significant. If you have somebody that's, just knocking you down through sarcasm all the time, I've said for years, sarcasm is scarcasm. Like there's an element of truth there. Like you don't need that. There's enough crazy train stuff going on in the world today. Who are you really surrounding yourself with? Who are you investing your heart in? And that in itself can really change how we look at the world and also ourselves. If you have somebody that like you're there for them all the time, all these people, and it's not reciprocated at some point, there's something off. And so it's finding, okay, what's my balance? What's my goodness, if you will? Mm-hmm. And over the years, I've had friendships come and go, and others I've kept for many, many years that I value. And I'm so grateful for, and we've become a little disillusioned with like friends, right? I use like air quotes gone wild there, where like I would talk, I would do classwork with kids over the years or be in assemblies. And how many friends you have? Well, I have 2,832 followers on Instagram. I'm like, listen, girlfriend, if the stuff hits the fan, right, in the middle of the night, who are you calling? And it was like, boom and boom. Okay. Those are your friends. The other people, right, the excess, right, even though they're, I'm sure, wonderful human beings, they're not your friends. And so defining like the people that are there that have my back, that is friendship. And saying like, I have to have this many friends. Well, whether you're 15 or you're 75, it's not the number that has significance. It's the context, the content, and the richness of it. Even if that's one person, that's one person, that's one human being, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is. It's the quality and the richness of those relationships. And anyway, and I think we do live in a world where that gets very confused right now because of how, and kids looking for their validation. Even adults looking sometimes.
Right. How many likes did I have? How many people on TikTok are following me or replying? And I'm like, that it is. It's like, this is what we're now being fed, is like that.
Well, I actually did a piece on it with talking about like just listening and the gift of like listening to one another and whatever, but how we've become disconnected, but how that's actually become an addiction for parents and kids both, right? That they have to have these likes, and they start to build their own value built upon that, especially kids at young ages. So I feel like that's a whole other topic in conversation, but it's
really massive. Yeah. I mean, I've done workshops for parents and it's like a hit of cocaine. Right, the rats that are going to the cocaine go back. I need it.
Release and all of that. So and if somebody gets 100 people say, "Oh, you look great in that picture," and then one person says, "Well, your nose looks kind of big," then they focus on that.
Toxic. And let me filter my face so I look like I'm 22, and I'm like, newsflash, I'm 43. I mean, it's just this. It is a society problem right now for sure.
So anyway, I know people that are watching this have just absolutely, and who get to watch this in the future, please drop in any questions or comments, but also reach out to Erin, goodnesschick.com. You can actually get from that space. You can go to, like, if you type in Goodness Chick, she's going to come up everywhere, right? Because that's just who she is.
Goodnesschick.com puts it all in one space, baby.
Yeah. So it's all about the goodness chick, goodnesschick.com. So you can actually reach out to all the things that you have going on by going to that website. So what we do is, and there's so many in this, right? This is probably the most profound closing out that I get to do, because I feel like it fits beautifully with the dot, which is a drop of thought, which is like a pearl of wisdom that I get to share. But if you were going to leave our audience with that dot, that drop of thought, just like the parting thought, what would it be?
I would say life is too short not to make a difference.
Love it. Oh, very succinct. Life is too short not to make a difference. Yeah, I love it. Well, so I feel like that's what this show is about, getting out and making a difference. I love it. I just would love to see this become a ripple for some people, just going, you know what, my family can sit down and we can actually come up with something, even if it's really simple, and do it, and maybe even share it so you can inspire others to step in and do the same. My dot that I always share, because it's just my heart, which is around connecting families, is that ripples don't flow in, they flow out. And if we really want to see change out in our world, it starts with us. It starts in our own homes, with our own families first. So let's all just go out, make a difference, create a ripple, and be that positive change. So
can I just do a real quick shout out, Cheryl, if that's okay?
Absolutely.
So I want to, because I know a lot of people have been saying, in terms of what do we subject ourselves and what we take in. And I am going to do kind of just a personal plug here. On that trip I did around the world, right? I wrote a book. It's called Conversations for Good. It is all about what we're talking about, the positive connection of making a difference and kindness from people, 23 countries, stories, and the power of human connection, and using our stuff, just like we talked about before, to change the world in a beautiful way.
Yes.
So I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
No, I thank you, because I absolutely, because I was fascinated by that book. So I'm glad you did that. But also, if they go to goodnesscheck.com, they will find it there.
They will find it there, or they could hop on Amazon, Conversations for Good, listening and learning from our neighbors around the world. And it is hand in hand with what we talked about today.
Okay, beautiful. Say it one more time. Conversations for Good.
Listening and learning from our neighbors around the world. And I have youth groups and different high schools and families that are now reading this. And it's a great way, if you're looking at hey, Mike, to connect with your high schoolers or middle schoolers, it is family appropriate and it's beautiful. I've had kids come and say wow, I want to do that. And wow, I didn't know that. And it's just part of what we take in is what we read, and the power of positive and encouragement is a game changer.
Yeah, so I would say two things. One, if you go do that, but also come out to familyconnectionchallenge.com, because I think what we'll do is we'll put that book up in the challenge.
Okay, great.
And get people to start tagging into that and some of the ideas that are coming from it. So anyway, that would be beautiful. Thank you,
Cheryl. I appreciate it. It was an honor being here today.
Thanks. Take care.